Hi, everyone, and welcome to Dollars and Cents of Financial Literacy this afternoon. We're going to kick off today's session with a quick disclaimer, and then I'll introduce myself and we can jump right in.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number ED ESE 14D0008 with Synergy Enterprises Incorporated. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, methodology, technique, or enterprise mentioned here is intended or should be inferred.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to talk about financial literacy programs. My name is Michelle Owens, and I work for Synergy Enterprises, mainly under the Y4Y program with 21st Century Community Learning Centers. And previously, before working at Synergy, I was a classroom teacher, a school psychologist, and then most recently worked with out-of-school time programs, community-based and faith-based organizations around the area of staff and student well-being, and also staff mental health and social emotional learning for students. So I'm really excited to be here today and talk to you about financial literacy. I have Capella that's going to be watching the chat box for me because of the platform. I can't see it very well. And so if you hear her voice jump in a little bit, she'll be helping me as we're going through and identifying some questions. And I definitely wanted to remind you that I wanted to provide this session for you where it's as interactive as possible. I know I don't get to see you and I don't get to hear from you, but so the chat box is going to be really important for us to, make it interactive, give me an idea of what programs you have that are currently going on, what programs you might want to be starting, some resources you've used, or some success stories. So during the next 75 minutes, I really want us to be able to share and learn from each other as well as we can. All right, so these are the 3 objectives that we're going to hit on today. Describe the 5 basic concepts of financial literacy. You'll see throughout the time that we have, we've kind of infused those into some of the things that we'll be talking about. Understand the steps for financial literacy implementation. So how is it that you can identify the needs of your grantees or of your families and students, and then also build different activities and programs that will best fit their needs. And then design and facilitate financial literacy activities that are aligned to student and family needs. So again, we'll bring it back around and we'll talk about how we can determine what the need is, and then how we can design the programs around those needs. All right, so our first chat box. And so right now, I'm going to ask you, do you have a personal definition of financial literacy? So if you throw in the chat Y or for yes or N for no, it'll kind of give us an idea of what your personal definition of financial literacy might be, if you have one already in mind. Give you a few minutes to put yes or no with your Y's and N's. All right, so as you're adding the yeses for those that already have an idea, or no's for those that do not, for anyone that put a Y in the chat box, could you share maybe, just quickly what your personal definition is in the chat box? It could just be a brief example of whatever you feel is your definition. And as you're doing that, it's not very surprising that we have yeses and nos. We have a number of both, and everyone's definition of financial literacy sometimes is very different based on many different factors. Your family you grew up in, your culture, the area of the country that you live in. So many things come into play when we talk about financial literacy and how we personally identify it. And financial literacy, people mainly say, oh, that's about money. And to be honest, when I, a while ago, was asked to present financial literacy, I was like, oh, I don't do really good with money. I'm not sure I want to do that. I don't know about stocks and things. And then once I got into it, I really realized there's so many levels of financial literacy that are very helpful without having to dive too deep into those. Owen Capella shared with us, it's the ability to budget and make smart financial decisions. Thanks. Karen said, understand what finance is and how it works for you. Thanks, Karen. I appreciate you participating and giving me some examples. All right, so we're going to move on. Thank you for giving me some of those examples. Okay, so financial literacy, the ability to use knowledge and skills to manage one's financial resources effectively for a lifetime financial security. And so that's a lot of words all in one little grouping. But for me, I really feel as though having the knowledge, as it says, but then also knowing what to do with it. There's lots of resources out there. You could Google financial planning, financial assistance, anything. And there's lots of resources that come up when you're Googling something. But really making sure that you understand the knowledge and skills that will make it to where it's not just today that you're financially secure, but also in your future. And so for the purpose of today's training, we pulled this definition of financial literacy from the Jumpstart Coalition. And they're really placing an emphasis on learning about the various skills. And so we'll go through those concepts that I talked about earlier, the 5 concepts of financial literacy. And so our goal really is to, really either learn ourselves some of the different financial literacy concepts, or teach those, whether they're children or families that we serve, how they can better use the financial literacy concepts. All right. So why financial literacy for the 21st century? So many of the programs that we work with, whether they are in school, out of school, community-based, within wherever they are, we really want to make sure that our goal is to help those, whoever our stakeholders are, lead productive and successful lives. And a key element to that is knowing your own finances. So knowing, budgets, knowing what is coming out of paychecks, knowing what it is to set up savings plans. And so we'll go through a lot of that today. And in most of the schools that we serve, financial literacy is not typically part of the school day curriculum. A few states do have it, and a few educators infuse it in where they feel as though it's important. And so as a result of this, there's not really an existing program for financial literacy for students and families. So this is really where you come into play, because you can offer the programs that can supplement what is already either offered during the school day or possibly offered in community-based organizations or through family or parent or caregiver, their employers. And so that's our goal today, is to kind of touch on all of those. These are some statistics of why it is important. So it says 38% of households have $16,000 are dead. I'm glad that's not me, but that is what has come out of one of the research studies that when they were asking questions and surveying people throughout the country. Only 22 states require schools to offer a personal finance course. So, there's only 22 states that are doing that, and it's not necessarily at every level of education through middle school and high school. It could just be little sprinkles of information throughout math, science, social studies classes. And the average college student graduates with just over $37,000 in student loan and debt. And I was on the social media page for the meeting, for the director's meeting, and I saw a lot of people posting pictures of graduates from college that were graduating. And it was really nice to be able to see that those were all being posted, and that, just seeing so many graduates come out of just our meeting that we're having. So we're going to do a quick poll today, and I'm just going to have you put it in the chat box, whatever you think would be your answer to this question. So one of these is correct, the other three are not. Financial literacy is important because does it teach students to use credit cards? Oh, that's supposed to be for purchases. Explains the best health insurance for you, encourages savings accounts, or gives you hints on the best stock market choices. You can put in A, B, C, or D. And again, we're just using the chat box for this. Okay, thanks, Doug. Doug put A, it's teaching students what to use credit cards for. It's kind of a tricky one. It says C, Kim, C. Okay, thank you. Thank you for participating. Yes, the answer is C, and A is a little bit tricky. We want in financial literacy to teach students, the interest rates of credit cards. We want to teach them, how, for instance, if you get a credit card and it says, oh, you have 18 months, 0% interest, really explaining to them that if you purchase, let's say, I don't know, a trip, they want to go on a trip. And so they purchase like an airfare, and, to really teach them that they really have to figure out in 18 months what they're going to pay back, if they're going to set up like a monthly plan with themselves, like, oh, I'm going to send $100 a month or $200 a month. So that one's a little bit tricky. But let's see what else we had. What not to use credit. Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, Doug, what not to use credit cards for is perhaps more important. And we'll get into that a little bit as we're moving through today. Some of the lessons and different resources that I have in our time together that will kind of hit home a little bit more about what not to use credit cards for, or the difference between using credit cards to purchase things or taking out a loan. All right, well, thank you. All right, so these are some things that, will be really beneficial to young people so that they can develop a strong foundation and knowledge for decision making. We want them to be able to make good, skilled decisions related to their own personal finance, what they're doing with the money that they're making through jobs, what they're doing. I mean, as young children doing chores, up to college students graduating and having their first job. And also with the financial literacy programs, some of the most successful programs that I've heard of have not only had the, child and teen component, but also has a family component. So helping parents and caregivers understand how to better manage their money can really provide economic benefits and emotional and social benefits for families. Money can put a lot of strain on families. And so there is definitely that emotional and social component of it that comes into play. So, importance of financial literacy, it promotes financial well-being. So participants, so through this, we really want to be able to expose those with different, as I'm trying to say, as you're providing this programming, you want to ensure that it's a safe space so that people, whether they're children or adults, can ask questions and learn more about building towards their financial stability themselves. It also enables informed decisions. And so this was something like that Doug had just put in the chat, making decisions on purchasing things, making decisions on, what part of your money is going to go into savings and what's going to go into a checking account that's going to be used for bills or other, other expenditures. And then, also, I mean, I know this is hard when we talk about the emergency financial situations or having that emergency fund. A lot of the families that we work with they're living day to day, paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of times that thought of a emergency financial situation is just not, it's just not doable with what they have going on right now with their finances. For unexpected financial hardships, we just talked about that. That's something that we definitely want to shoot for in the future as we're doing financial literacy. Financial goal setting, setting goals for yourself. If you're, you're working with students and you want them to set up a goal of what money they're going to earn, what they want to spend it on. And for adults, a lot of times it's the same exact thing. If I want a new patio set, I'm going to have to try to figure out how much I'm going to have to take out of each of my paychecks to eventually get my new patio set. And then encourages savings accounts. This is a big part of financial literacy when we're working with younger people, because a lot of them do not have savings accounts. And so, really trying to work with local banks, and if banks are not close, because that's also another barrier a lot of times to opening savings accounts, being able to encourage maybe online banking and setting up online savings accounts that way. It also teaches building a budget. Budget is funny. So many times I have people say, oh yeah, I try to budget my grocery list with the amount of money that I want to spend on groceries. And they always say, but I never stick within that budget. And it's mainly because lists aren't made, or you're not following your list and you get a little crazy at the grocery store. So really trying to build on whatever that budget is that you're trying to keep. And then the very last one is supporting school day instruction or financial education standards. So if there are standards in the state that you live in on financial education, it's really good to be able to, either meet with your local school or maybe just someone that is overseeing that program during the school day, so that if you have an after-school program or a summer program or some other kind of community-based program where you want to offer financial literacy, you will be able to kind of complement what's being done during the school day. So as I was doing a little bit of research on, what are students really trying to, what are programs really trying to do to get students to, buy into financial literacy, different programs or different resources that are offered. And I came upon this article from Sean Spruce. And one of the quotes that he had in there that stood out to me was, the key to building sustainable Native economics may lie in the financial literacy education of Native youth. And so we're looking to really educate everyone. But when I think of my own children, if they come home from school and their teacher has taught them something that day, I never stop hearing about it for the rest of the day and maybe the week, especially if it's something that, excited them. And financial literacy usually does excite, kids and teens, because they want to save money and they want to purchase things for themselves and they want to be able to have money when they want it. And so I think it's really important that we look at the fact that just the education of financial literacy can really be something that starts with students and then trickles over into the families that we serve. So Sean Spruce and he's a financial educator for First Nations Development Institute. And that's a nonprofit, some of you may know about it, that's really put in place to strengthen Native communities through economic development. And so his passion is about educating children and their families on the most important things of literacy. And so he really likes to talk about paying bills, balancing checkbooks, not using credit cards foolishly, knowing about interest rates, medical emergencies, buying a home, going to college. So like all of those list of things that are really important, but he wants to make sure that it's taught and it's also explained in the concept of the families that we serve. Another question for the chat box. You can stop listening to me talk for a minute. So why might some children, youth, or adults be uneasy talking about money? What comes up that makes you, money always sometimes seems to be makes people anxious a little bit to talk about, or might make them, a lot of feelings come up based on the amount of money maybe you had as a child, the amount of money that you make now. So many different feelings come up when we talk about using money, and a lot of times it does make us uneasy. It's kind of like one of your colleagues asking you how much money you make. So at first you might be like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. So in the chat box, go ahead and share. What might you think that the children, teens, or adults that you serve would make them uneasy to talk about money or finances? Capella shared, for some people, ignorance is bliss when it comes to money. Some people would rather not know. And I'll be honest, that's me with like the stock market. I try to read stuff and then my head spins and then I just kind of special person. Anyone else have anything they want to share? Okay, Elaine, those invasion of their privacy. Yes, and people really do. They feel like they feel very uneasy talking about it. And you'll notice not necessarily younger children, but once they hit like high school into young adulthood, it really becomes more of, an uneasy feeling, I think, to talk about it. Very much a taboo subject in some households. It is something you do not share. Correct. And I know a lot of, when I was teaching, a lot of my students, if we said they'd, bring $5 to school for a field trip, they would rather not come to school than come and say they didn't have the $5 to go on the field trip. Or parents wouldn't want them to say that, or family members, and just keep them home and just say they couldn't go, rather than, share that they just really can't afford that right now and see what the school or the teacher can do in order to make sure their child can go. Also, I think in households that I worked with, a lot of times kids were working. They were working to help pay bills. And so a lot of the families didn't want the school or the district to know that some of the days that my students were missing was because they were at work. They weren't sick, they were at work making money for the family. So that came up a lot in the school that I worked at. Karen, they don't have as much as they think someone else has with children. If they don't have money, it makes them feel very insecure. Yes. And we see that a lot in our school systems, with the younger students, with clothes, with shoes. The Nike, I don't know what they are now, the Nike Blazers or whatever. And then with older students, it starts with, a vehicle that you might drive, or, certain, like, also clothes you wear, or what kind of dress you're wearing to homecoming. And there's so many things that, really label children and teens. When it comes to money, it starts to become, very apparent. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you sharing. All right, so we have another question. To add on to what we just said about how money can make children and adults feel uneasy, what kinds of personal or family experiences or circumstances might affect how children, youth, or adults view their ability to deal with money? Go ahead and put that in the chat for me too. So what could happen in a family, an experience or a circumstance that would pop up that, children, youth, even adults, just don't want to talk about what that experience is or what's happening in the moment.
Michelle, if I may,
Yeah.
I have a vivid memory of being in elementary school, and it was right after my parents got divorced, and right before summer let out, our teacher was like, "Where are y'all gonna go on vacation? Anybody going anywhere?" And classmates were saying, "I'm going to Hawaii, I'm going to Chicago, I'm going to Europe." And I wasn't able to say anything because my parents just split up and money was tight, because we were down to a single parent income. So that really stuck with me. I was really little in pre-K when my parents, I still remember it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that really shifted my perspective.
Yes. And I mean, those type of situations really affect children. Like you said, you still remember that moment. Everybody probably has a story like of the first time that maybe they remember, like, I don't know, a financial thing or something that happened in as a life experience that made you go, oh, like I'm not part of that, or I can't talk to that. Elaine put in there, oh, parents loss of job. Yep, when a parent loses a job, or Jessica has addictions. Yes, very much. Children are really good at hiding a lot of the things that happen in their homes. Don't talk about it at school, don't talk about it with adult mentors or anyone. Let me see. So we have, Jim says, poor people can be reserved due to the shame or feeling they don't have enough money. Yes, definitely. You don't want to be part of a group conversation if it's going to make you feel bad about yourself because you don't have enough money to even be part of what's happening. Doug says school lunch tickets. Yes, color-coded school lunch tickets. I know. So that also has been a big push, I think, through some of the USDA free and reduced lunch and snacks and meals programs. Try to make sure that everyone kind of has a barcode and the system itself says who's the free or reduced lunch student, because that can make someone feel very bad. If you're in high school and you're that free student, you might not even get lunch because you don't want to be labeled that free student. You might just pass it up. And then income. Yes, so not realizing that it would make, a high school student or middle school student let others know that they're from a low income family. So they start to get embarrassed and they start, they won't eat lunch because of that. All right, thank you very much for sharing. And we have another one. I like the sharing, and I learn new things every time. Generations of low income resources with commodity foods, SNAP, and things. Yeah. And so all of those things definitely stand out. I feel like in my community, something that's been, and I live in a very rural community in North Carolina, but I feel like one of the things that has been helpful is some of the programs that are offered to families are now being accepted at, farmers markets and other like produce markets, which I think has been very helpful in my community, where it's not just where people go to the grocery store and they might feel embarrassed because they have to separate their items, like the items they're going to pay for and the items that are, with their WIC check or through their SNAP benefits or whatever that is. So yeah, that's definitely, thank you, Heather, for sharing that. And I think also it's the dynamics that happen, because my life experience late in life was using WIC check when I was a foster parent. And people would look at me like, well, you don't qualify for that check by, by, by what you look like and whatever. And it was very hard because I would have to over explain myself that, well, the child's not staying with me forever. And the WIC check is connected to the child. And so if you don't use it, you lose it. And so I felt like I was always over explaining myself for using that. And it made me feel really insecure and bad, like I was doing something wrong. So even on the other foot of using different programs that are set up to help. All right, so let's look at a few other life experiences and money issues that were called out. You guys called some of these out with being identified as poor through lunch, free and reduced lunch, not having enough money to purchase something, being denied a credit card, you apply for it, you can't get it, or even trying to use a credit card and it's declined. For kids, seeing others with nicer clothes, teens, someone with a better car. This is something that's always happening. I love the idea of uniforms for everyone, just for this specific bullet point here, where the only thing that you have nicer stuff is by your shoes. Families that have to file for bankruptcy, that's something that they don't want everyone to know. And it can bring a lot of embarrassment to their families if they have to file for bankruptcy, if it's even a business or if it's something for a personal bankruptcy. Being evicted and being homeless, I think, are two of the most important bullets that we have here, because when we're working with students, the stress of being evicted that they're feeling from their parents or their caregivers, and then on top of them thinking that they're going to be homeless, can really, really, affect a young child and even an adult, but a child who, doesn't know where they're going to live the next day and if they're even going to get to school. Being unemployed, not being able to find a job. Where I live, it's very, very tourist driven in the summers. And then in the winters, there is no one and there's no work. So people come to work in the summer and then they all leave in the winter. And then we have no one here to work in the winter. And our unemployment rate goes up so high because they shut down businesses during the winter. So if people don't know how to budget when they make a lot of money in the summer, and then there's no money in the winter, how to budget that across 12 months. Receiving welfare and assistance, someone had put that in the chat and also shared that with us, Heather. Being teased about clothes or poverty, having a poor credit score, and wearing hand-me-downs. Hand-me-downs were always something that came up in our classroom when I was a teacher. A lot of the clothes that kids wore hand-me-downs. We would collect clothes. And so it got to the point to where we would collect clothes from kids in our school to then repurpose to other children that may need coats and boots and things. And we got to the point to where we would switch with other schools, because then, a second grade student wasn't wearing something that a third grade student just passed down and they knew it was theirs. And so we were like swapping schools with all of the things that we were collecting. I saw someone raise their hand. The hand raised, Capella. I'm sorry, I can't see that from mine.
I do not currently, but if somebody tried to raise their hand,
Okay.
do you mind doing it again? Oh, that was a mistake. No, it's all right.
Oh, okay. No problem. I was like, someone has a question. And it's hard when you can't talk to me. So I was just like,
Right.
All right. So those are some of the life experiences and money issues that might come up when you're doing a financial literacy program. And I mentioned before, making it a safe, comfortable environment because of these things. These are some of the situations that the families and the students that you're going to work with when working with the financial literacy program that will come to the surface. They'll definitely come up as far as, me as an educator, how am I going to help students that may be homeless and their parents are unemployed to talk about financial literacy. It can be hard to even have a program that talks to students when those are the things that their families are facing at that moment. All right, so we're jumping into the 5 concepts of financial literacy. And so most of the session will focus on these different literacy concepts. We're going to go through earning, spending, credit and debt, insuring, and saving and investing. So these are the ones we'll dive into a little bit. And, I know some people will say, oh, if I asked you to raise your hand, if I could see you, how familiar are you with each of these? And some people would, say, oh, I'm comfortable with earning. I get paid. And my husband would say, I'm definitely comfortable with spending. Credit and debt, oh, yeah, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like a lot of people say, I have like a roller coaster feeling with it because they're like, oh, I can put it on the credit card and then slowly pay it off. But then they have kind of like this tightness in their chest, like, oh, I better not lose my job or have anything happen because I have to pay all of that off. And then insuring, some people will say, is it really that important to insure it? A lot of people will say, I've had a truck for a long time and I have the basic insurance on it. But if I get into a really bad accident and that thing's totaled, I will not end up getting a new truck. So really talking about the importance of that. And then saving and investing. Usually people are like, oh yeah, I feel really comfortable and talking about saving, but investing is something where I'm just like, I do not have a lot of knowledge. I don't feel comfortable with that. And I definitely need to learn more about, in that area. Okay, so you should have been able to download a handout that was the Doodle to Learn handout. If you didn't get it in place where you joined the presentation, totally fine. You can just use any piece of paper. And so we're going to do a quick Doodle to Learn because pictures help us help us remember concepts. And so I'm going to read the definitions of each of the concepts: the earning, spending, credit and debt, insuring, saving, and investing. And then you can create a doodle or an icon. So some type of picture that represents each of the 5 areas. So you're going to draw a little icon, you're going to write on your paper, earning, spending, credit and debt, insuring, and saving and investing. If you have the handout, it's laid out like that for you. And then next to the word, draw an icon that makes you think of it. So earning might be a tree because, money grows on trees. And so it could be anything that you want. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to go ahead and do that. And then we'll come back together and we'll share out a little bit. Just one icon for each of the areas. Oh, let me go. I'm sorry. Here's the areas. I apologize. Okay, I'm going to move to the next step just for time's sake. And the next step will be to create a doodle to represent financial literacy. So you drew an icon for each of the 5 areas. And now you can create a doodle, which can just be like a collection of your icons if you want. It can add additional graphics to it, words, whatever you want. When we do this in person, it's really great because I get to see so many amazing photos. And even if you're not an artist, people really improvise. They use words and make them all swirly. Or others have graffiti type doodles. So I'll give you a few minutes to create a doodle that brings all of those concepts together. As you're finishing up your doodle, I'm going to add something to the chat box. So if you want, you can text me your doodle, a picture of it, or send it to my email so that I can see it. I don't get to see anything y'all are doing right now. All right, so we're going to move ahead. You can finish doodling if you want. Sometimes I know doodling helps people concentrate that want to do something with their hands. People are sometimes drawing. So if that helps you, please go ahead and continue doodling. But I was going to ask, as you were doing this, if you would go into the chat box and just briefly describe one of the icons that you connected. You can do all 5 or just one of them that you connected to one of the financial literacy concepts. So the earning, spending, credit and debt, insuring, and savings and investing. So what did your icon look like for one of those, all 5 of those? Oh, that's really cute, Capella. Capella says for insuring, she drew a first aid kit. I like that. Oh, great, Kim. She said she drew a check as a symbol of the check that went into the bank to equal earnings. Lane for insuring, I have a little safe with money on it. That's cute. Someone in one of my in-person sessions for spending drew a car and there was like dollar bills coming out the window. I was like, spending doesn't always have to be recklessly, but it was really cute. Credit and debit, threaded T-charts we learned, yep, in accounting class. What goes in, got to put things in to take things out. Spending a little flying bird with money on the wings, that's cute. Karen has earning is a cup of coffee in front of her computer. Spending is a happy face, insuring is an umbrella, and investing is relaxing at the beach. And now see, Karen, I live at the beach and relaxing is not always at the beach. Although it's hard to work sometimes when everyone's at the beach enjoying themselves. All right, well, thank you. And continue to add things to the chat box as we're moving through. Because I love to learn from all of you and kind of see where you're coming from as far as, where the 5 components of financial literacy set within you and, how we can just kind of advance some of the things that we talk about within financial literacy. So real quick, I'm not going to dive into the best practices, but I just wanted to show them to you because I think it's really important that as you're creating a financial literacy program, whether it be you're just getting ready to offer the program, you're thinking about it, or you already have a program and you're just looking to, really increase, what you're doing within your program or, make it better. You've evaluated it and you want to make changes. And so for the purposes of today, I just wanted to share this. You don't necessarily have to build a program team, but it's good to sit down and think about, okay, if we're going to have a financial literacy program, who should we have at the table? Who should we bring in that can help us? It might be one of the students that you serve, their grandparent works at a bank, or it could be that, one of the teens that you work with could really come in and give you a great understanding of, what kind of financial literacy needs other teens in the program have. So it doesn't have to really be a program team. It could be anybody, but just to really kind of take into consideration that you really want to bring in others to help, to kind of build ideas and brainstorm. Create that safe learning environment, definitely a needs assessment. What are the needs of the, adults or young children that you serve? What are we looking for when it comes to financial literacy? It might just be savings, in the beginning. It might just be, that's where we start. And then we move on to other components of financial literacy. SMART goals are always really important. We want to make sure that we can measure them, make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for failure. We want to be able to achieve them. And all of the different components of SMART goals are really important as far as when you get to the end and you want to evaluate, did we reach our goal? Did we not reach our goal? And that's really helpful to kind of determine. Program assets, kind of like those partnerships that you can bring in, other people, other organizations that can work with you. Logistics, where is it going to fit into our current programming? What if we don't have a program? What building are we going to use to offer this? All of those different logistics. Intentionally designing your activities. So like I said, I use savings as an example as a way to start. We might just start there based on the audience that will be present, or it could be that the audiences already have bank accounts and they're doing good with savings. And now we want to move into another area of talking about, insuring. Conducting marketing and outreach, when you're offering the program, especially if it's not in connection with a school where you have the kids that you can, send flyers home about the program. If it's with families, it might be through social media, might be through text messaging, whatever outlets you use. Making sure your staff has training. So you're here today, but then we also have some other trainings that I'll share at the end that you can use to help train your staff on financial literacy. Definitely implement with fidelity. And then at the end, celebrate. We want to make sure that you get to celebrate successes. It could be very small successes. It could be very big successes, but it's really important to celebrate, the impact that you've made on your, the families and children that you serve. So, okay, so these are just a few questions to consider when you're thinking about, what are the needs of my students and families that I kind of already know, So what do you know about the financial education activities? Is there things being offered in the schools? Is there something outside of the schools that's already going on? Is there absolutely nothing within the community right now for financial education? It could be at a community center, could be even at a faith-based organization. A lot of times they have these type of activities. So kind of figuring out, what's already going on and what the need is. And are there activities that you can work with partners on? So I talked about financial experts, grandma that works at a bank, or maybe someone that just graduated from college and he or she's majored in finance or business or anything like that, that could come back and lend an hour to the program just to be like a guest speaker to talk about, like budgeting. And the last one, knowledge and skills do your staff have? So we kind of go back to that professional development of the staff that will lead the financial literacy activities. And, will there be an advisory board of others that will help you determine what those offerings will be? And then also, that you really want to be able to pull in those partners again, because they will be so useful when you're doing, you're diving into the different literacy concepts. Let me see, I have a few chat box things I want to stop really quick. Doug, he said earnings origami folded shirt, representing a work shirt, spending equals money, exchanging hands, credit, debit, bank icon, and sharing pair of hands holding a heart with a red cross. Oh, that's really, I like that. Saving, investing equals a piggy bank with money going in. Yes, that's great. And then Carmelita, she has a doctoral student at Little Bighorn who is doing her dissertation research on this topic in college. Oh, Carmelita, you are lucky. Native college student enrolled at a tribal college. She herself is comptroller at LBHS. That is wonderful. So it's someone that comes from that specific culture, community, and can really dive deeper into what are the needs. How can I help, this program prosper, because I know the needs and I also know the capabilities. I know what assets there are. I know that there's not a bank for 200 miles. So how can I help the people within the financial literacy program open a bank account? And so some of the barriers that come up, someone like your graduate student or doctoral student, I'm sorry, will be able to really help with that because she has a sense of what is happening within the community and then has the knowledge to really drill it down and start where the community is and then raise it up based on her knowledge base. So that's great. All right, so we're back to those concepts. We're just going to go through with a few examples as we're moving through. And so we're going to start with earning. So the earning concept includes these things. Income. We want to teach paycheck tax withholding. This is the funniest thing for me in the world because I have a niece who babysat and got just paid cash. And when she got her first check, she didn't understand why she didn't get all her money. And I said, because there's lots of things that are withheld in your check. And that was a big disappointment for her to, because she didn't know. She had no financial literacy on paychecks and taxes that would be withheld. Also, the third bullet is workplace benefits. What comes with that when you get your first job at a college, at a high school, or even if you don't finish high school and you get your first job, what would I be looking for as far as benefits, with retirement, health, tuition reimbursements. If you are a high school graduate and you want to go to college and take some classes or a technical school, what does that look like with tuition reimbursement for you? So an activity example in a financial literacy program would be to bring a sample paycheck and maybe make a few copies of it for those in the group. And, you can cross out like whatever the money is, if it's your own check, or you can pull some offline, some samples, and really go through the paycheck stub and see exactly what's being taken out. And so that then they can identify that, you have a gross income before taxes, and then you have another annual income level after taxes for the year. Another fun thing is to create different scenarios so that they can negotiate, like their salaries, teaching them how to, negotiate. usually there's a range of a salary based on education and experience. And so how can you, you know, prove to the person that's interviewing you that you're worth this, part in the middle. You're not worth the lowest level. Like you have more experience than, you think you do. So what does that look like? And also, scenarios where when you're working with adults that they might be able to calculate different retirement and health plans. So when your employer says, what percentage of your check do you want to send to life insurance or to which health plan do you want based on the money that's taken out of every paycheck? And so this is just an earning example that comes out of a resource called My Classroom Economy. And this was just one of the lessons I pulled out when it comes to paychecks that can be used. So this is an earning activity, very similar to what we talked about before. But with this one, they give students paychecks and then they have like a fake classroom bank. And so they can be awarded bonuses. They have bank slips there, bank logs. And so they're really trying to teach the kids through this that like, when you get your paycheck, these are the next steps that you take. You don't go and cash the whole thing. You maybe take a little bit out for yourself and then you put some in your checking account and then possibly some in your savings account and just trying to learn how to distribute it best for you. So this is a great curriculum. I will make sure that I put the links in at the very end. I will give them to you, but this is the My Classroom Economy. Unless you have it, Capella, I don't know if I put it in there. I did. I'll give it to everyone.
Karen actually has a question. She didn't see in the list about retirements offered at a job. Do you see that?
Yes. And that wasn't in that list. And I know that within a lot of the what are they? Like some of the financial literacy curriculums and lessons and resources, they definitely do talk about like 401k plans and those kind of things so that you can start doing it right away. Thank you for reminding me. So I was talking about savings and checking, but that's also a really good way to talk about, because, if you get out of school at 22 and you get your first job, if you get out of college or if you get out of high school at 17, 18 and you get your first job, you don't really know what a retirement plan is. And it's not really always explained well to you. It's kind of given to you maybe as a booklet. And if you're that age, you're thinking about, like Capella said, the trip you want to go on, or possibly a new vehicle you want, or whatever it is, concert tickets, it could be anything. And so I agree, Karen, they're very, very important.
I remember, I'll never forget the day that I learned that 401k is not actually getting $401,000 when you retire. My mind was blown. That is why financial literacy is so important, folks.
All right, so spending. This concept can include, learning budget creation and management. Budgeting is really hard to learn. Just because you've never really done it before, like as a kid, usually, your parents or caregivers might have a budget and they say to you, oh, that's not in the budget. We're not buying that right now. We're not buying that today. We have to like put away certain bits of money to be able to purchase that. And then other families are very much get paid, buy it, and then worry about the rest of the month later. So there's a lot of dynamics that happen with spending. And the second bullet, I think, goes to what I just said, recognizing how your personal background and experiences impact your spending. Because some people are raised or learn that, there's needs and there's wants, and others are not. And so it's very hard sometimes to take, like a middle school or high school student who has always gone straight to wants and not really been able to separate that, no, these are the things that you need, and these are the things that you want. So some of the different activities in financial literacy that really help with that, help students and adults distinguish between that. It's not just young people, it's also adults that sometimes need help determining that and just learning a little bit more about it. All right, so we're going to do a quick activity on spending. So I'm going to have you list 10 things. You don't have to list 15, that's a lot. 10 things that you're going to spend money on in the next month. Here's some examples. So just real quick on that piece of paper, just list 10 things. Have children, you can fill that list out quick. I could probably do 15 things right now. All right, after you list your 10 things, then you're going to give each of your items an estimated cost and total it up. So if you're one of those people that get your morning coffee somewhere that's not at home, usually what, $5 to $7. One of those people that gets your hair done once a month, or if you, like for my husband, he'll go fishing and spend so much money on gas and bait. That needs to be in that list. Anything, and then add up your list. Totals of just your estimates. You don't have to put your list in the chat, but if you want to put your total in there, you can put your total in there. If you don't want to share it, you do not have to share it. Another thing about finances, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. It is just kind of a game and an estimate. Okay, so as you're adding those up, I'm going to jump into part 2. So you have your total. So let's say your total is, we'll just go with what's on the slide, $100. You've totaled $100 in the month that you're going to spend, which I'm sure it's more than that, but we'll just stick with that. It's easy. And you budgeted for $50. So your budget only gave you $50 for the month, but your grand plans for the month are $100. So as you look at your list, you can put an N next to if you think it's a need or if you think it's a want. So what can you cut out of the list that you made to get to whatever the budget is? That's hard. Sometimes it's really hard to distinguish with how can I cut my list down in half. I think that's where the needs and the wants really help you determine. I know, like my mom used to like fill her cart with stuff, and then she would be one of those people that drove me crazy and would like sit there and determine, do I really need this or do I want this? I got to put this back to try to stay within a budget. I just remember being young and my mom being like unloading the cart. All right, so if you want to share, I'm going to move on because we have like 20 minutes and I want to get through the last few pieces. But if you want to share, go ahead and drop it in the chat box. Whatever your total budget was, or, how it felt, like kind of like how you determine needs and wants. Okay, so we're jumping into credit and debt. And most of the time when we talk about that, it comes into borrowing money. So, borrowing money, getting loans, whether it be for school, it might be to purchase something to, redo in your home. Auto purchases, other purchases. I mean, I know like my dad used to do tractors for the farm, and then mortgages on houses. And this is home ownership is one of the things that I think is the most difficult sometimes when we're talking about financial literacy, when we're talking with families that are really just trying to pay for wherever they're living at the moment, whether it be rent or, and not having the opportunity to save, to purchase a home. And so a lot of times within the mortgage and the home ownership aspect of financial literacy, we talk a little bit more about the programs that are offered also to help with owning your first home. And then building a credit history, making sure you're paying your bill. Will give you a good credit rating for when you do want to purchase something in the future, and not to misuse the credit that you're given. So these are some scenarios that you can use within your financial literacy program. Come up with scenarios that the students can calculate, what fees come along with borrowing money from a bank or borrowing money from a company. And then explore their credit reports, kind of determine if they have, what good credit is and what bad credit is, and how bad credit habits can really impact you later in life when you do want to purchase a home or an automobile or anything with a loan. So this is a lesson that comes from FINRA Foundation on credit card and loan differences. It really explains, when you do want to get a loan or when you want to put it on a credit card, which would be better. And so this specific lesson is for teenagers. So it's middle school and high school that it's focused towards, on before you use your credit card, what should you do? So like steps of what you should do before you just start swiping. Now we'll go into insuring. These concepts can include your insurance plans. I feel like cell phones are the thing that really hits home with when we're working with kids, because the other ones sometimes are like, oh yeah, I'm not into health insurance or car insurance quite yet. But when you tell them that if they drop their phone in the water, if they don't have the little insurance plan, they have to buy the whole brand new phone, they're kind of like, they light up like, what? I have to buy a whole new phone? And so, that's one thing with students when you're working with them, or children and youth. And then, the insurance plans, car insurance, all of these other insurance policies that are really important. And I think come into different parts of your life as you're getting older, and as Karen said, some of them do not. Some of them you think that they come in later, but we need them right now. And then identifying scams also. That's a huge thing with all of it, with credit, with insuring, with a lot of the financial things that are going on with, especially with online, moving money around online and trying not to get hacked or have scams or anything happen to you as you're doing that. That could be an entire lesson in itself of how to really protect yourself when it comes to that. Some examples, activity examples for your program. Again, I think creating scenarios and letting people and kids model what they're going to do is very helpful. If you're walking through it with another, student's class, or if two adults are walking through it together, if the facilitator, if you're offering, this to adults as a facilitator, walking the adults through the process is very, very helpful, no matter what concept of financial literacy you're working on. For this example, what steps do you take when you're using your car insurance after you get into an accident? So, you get into an accident, do you pay for it yourself? Or do you claim insurance? And how will that balance out? If you pay for it out of pocket, you might not have your insurance go up, or if you do go ahead and claim it, it might be better off because the destruction of your vehicle was way too big to come out of pocket with it. So those are good examples. And then that example of your cell phone after you drop it in the ocean. And I use this one because this is what my 13-year-old did not too long ago. And so how important it is to have insurance on your cell phone and other large dollar items. So saving, I think, is one of the not easiest, but like the beginning. I feel like saving is kind of the beginning of financial literacy, especially when it comes to kids. They start to get the concept of saving when they want something and it's not being purchased for them, and they're told they have to save for it. And what can they do to save money, and really teaching them that, okay, yes, you see this toy you want, using younger children, but you're saving to go to the zoo. And so, if you spend your money on that, you're not going to the zoo anytime soon. So really teaching them those concepts. And this just came out of the Center for Social Development at Washington University and New America Foundation. So I thought this was interesting because it focused on college and the success rate of kids going to college. So they found that youth who have a savings account for college are 7 times more likely to attend college than those that don't. So when they start thinking about it, in middle school, high school, that they want to go to college and they want to help, either their family or just start it for themselves, a college fund, it really helps to kind of have those conversations also about the importance of higher education when it comes to, searching for jobs and, looking for other opportunities. All right, so savings and investing. This is the concepts include, we talked about start saving early, looking at a personal budget, having a schedule for savings. So if you want to put a certain percentage, you talk to the people within your financial literacy program. Hey, I think it would be great. Whatever you can put into savings out of every paycheck. It might be $5. It might be $50. But what kind of schedule are you going to set up to save? You're going to put this amount of money in for bills or whatever you need to cover. You might take a little bit out for yourself to spend on something and then put some in savings. So you have that regular schedule going. If you're like me, it's best when it's directly deposited into a savings account. Also pay yourself first and track savings and contributions. It might be where, like for my family, I make the kids put all the money that they get from family members for gifts. They have to put half in their savings account, which backfired on me because they told my parents to send them gift cards instead of money. So I take their money from. So this was also something that I found when I was researching, that the overall goal is to help kids save money. And this was a program that was started on the Blackfeet Reservation in East Glacier, Montana. And the man that started the program was creating mini banks and going around to 5 different schools on the Blackfeet Reservation and pretending to be a mini bank. And so the kids would bring like all of their coins to school and he would count them up and they'd fill out a deposit slip, and he would be the person, because the bank was far away, that would take the money and make the deposits for the kids into the bank. So he kind of taught them, how to do deposit slips, how to do withdrawals. And so he was doing all of that within the school building, but kind of setting up his own little thing. And so it was a really great program. I was reading all about it, like the successes of it. And through the NACD, the Native American Community Development Corporation, at one point they were matching those savings accounts of those mini banks up to $200. So it was a program that they had set up. but it was really interesting to read through and see kind of the successes that were happening within that program. All right, saving and investing. So these are just some examples again of saving and investing, and we are almost at time. So I'm going to go through and I'll make sure that you get these. And so as we're ending up today, I hope that you were able to get some really great resources that you'll be able to use that will be beneficial for you. And I will have the platform where you came in with some of the handouts are. I will share with the conference coordinator the links to some of the resources I shared today so that you have all of those for yourself. And I will open it up to questions. If anyone wants to throw some questions in the chat, otherwise, you are good to leave me. And this is what's up next. It starts in 9 minutes. I'm sorry I kept you over, but it was great to talk about financial literacy with you today. I hope you're able to take some things back with you and yeah, and reach out to me or to the coordinators of the directors meeting that can get you in contact with me if you need any other additional information. Yes, thank you for attending. That was, I really appreciate the time and the interaction.
I know Michelle brought it up, but don't forget everybody to head over to the roundtable networking session. Just as a final reminder, today's roundtable color is green, so make sure you click on the right roundtable network.
Thanks, Alex.